Jin hurried down the dimly lit hallway, his footsteps echoing off the cold stone walls of the dormitory. He reached their shared room, pushed the door open without knocking. His eyebrow furrowed when he saw the panicked faces. Subin stood by the door, eyes shimmering with tears. Taehyung was chewing his thumb in nervousness. J-Hope looked like he'd run 5 miles barefoot, sweat dripping from his temples as he darted frantic glances between the others. But one face was missing. "Where is Jimin?" he said, breaking the silence in the room. "He's not here, Hyung," he said while looking at the clock. He took a deep breath and said, "I checked everywhere. He's not here. I looked outside by the courtyard. There's no sign of him. Hyung, what do we do?" he added, almost sobbing. Jin's eyes flicked to the clock above the door. 9:50. His heartbeat slammed painfully in his ribs. Only 10 minutes left before the headmistress came to their room for inspection. 10 minutes before the gates were locked for the night. If Jimin didn't get back inside before then, they were all finished. "Today, Chimmy will get us all thrown out for sure," he muttered under his breath. "If my Ama finds out I got expelled from the dorms, she'll banish me from the kingdom. Where are you, Jimin?" He cursed loudly while his sweaty palms trembled in fear. Then, a faint noise. A soft thud, like someone scrabbling against the stone wall outside the window. All 4 boys froze. Slowly, they turned toward the window, and their jaws dropped. There, clinging to the narrow ledge by his fingertips, was Jimin. His face was red from exertion, hair sticking to his forehead. He flashed them a sheepish smile that did absolutely nothing to calm their terror. "Hyung, help me!" he squeaked, legs swinging wildly as he tried not to look down. Just when they were going to do anything, a loud clang rang through the dormitory. The headmistress's warning bell, which indicated it's 10 o'clock, and they all had seconds. "Shit!" he hissed. "Taehyung, Subin, guard the door," he said hurriedly. Without question, Taehyung and Subin went and stood in front of the door, arms outstretched like nervous little shields, as curious Omegas outside tried to peek in. Meanwhile, Jin and Hoseok lunged for the window. They grabbed Jimin's wrists, just as his grip gave out, and yanked him inside with one desperate pull. Jimin tumbled forward, crashing on top of them. All 3 landed in a tangled heap on the cold floor. Jimin couldn't help but giggle, but his breathless giggle did nothing to help. He smiled, showing his teeth. "Hi, Hyung. You are dead." Both of them gave him a death glare while Jimin let out a nervous chuckle. Taehyung and Subin rushed over and helped untangle them, while Hobie hurriedly shoved a nightgown into Jimin's hands so forcefully it nearly smacked him in the face. "Wear it! Now, Jiminy, hurry!" Jimin scrambled to his feet, yanking the nightgown over his messy uniform, just as the heavy sound of footsteps stopped outside the door. They barely made it. All 5 lined up by their beds, hearts pounding so hard the air felt electric. The door slammed open with a crack that made Subin flinch so violently he nearly fell backward. Hobie drew a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Greet, madam!" His face turned red. "Good evening, madam." They bent at a perfect 90-degree angle, voices trembling. The woman who entered could make a grown man whimper with just a glance. Tall, severe, her dark hair twisted into a merciless bun. She wore a heavy black robe that swept the floor like a death shroud, and the silver-tipped cane in her hand tapped the ground in ominous beats. "Positions," she gave them a nod. They straightened instantly, backs rigid, eyes lowered to the floor. Silence filled the room, broken only by the soft scrape of her cane as she looked around the room like a predator hunting for prey. She flipped open their neatly organized cupboards, lifted the blankets with the end of her cane, poked under the beds to check if anything or anyone suspicious. She found nothing, nothing out of place. She gave them a nod, but her eyes narrowed at the box of fancy jewelry spilling out from Taehyung's and Jimin's open drawers. "If I hear either of you whining about missing valuables," she said, voice low and icy, "I will make you both sleep outside with the stray dogs." "Yes, headmistress." They gulped their saliva, still heads bowed. She walked toward the window, leaned out just enough to inspect the flower pots on the ledge. The pots were slightly moved from Jimin's desperate scramble, but she seemed satisfied, stepping back inside. She then moved to the center of the room, planting her cane in front of her feet. She lifted her chin, eyes scanning over each boy in turn. "Recite the rules," she said calmly. The 5 of them obeyed instantly, voices tight and shaky but unified. Never cross into Alpha territory. Never allow an Alpha to touch you. Focus only on studies and training. Return before 9 o'clock. After 10, no one leaves or enters the dormitory. Any violation will result in immediate suspension. For the culprit and their entire room. Her lips curled into a thin line of approval. Again, they repeated, louder this time, hoping the tremble in their voices wouldn't betray them. She stared them down a moment longer before turning her cold gaze on Jin. "Where is Junie?" He lowered his eyes respectfully. "He fell asleep early, madam." She gave a small, approving nod. "Stay behind until I have finished inspecting the other wings, then return to your quarters." "Yes, madam." She turned to leave, but paused when she reached Jimin. He stiffened as her eyes locked on him. Dark, all-seeing. She leaned closer, nostrils flaring. Her voice dropped to a growl. "Why do I detect alpha phenomenon on you, Park Jimin?" Jimin's heart slammed against his ribs. His lips parted, but no words came out. He was about to say something, but he was stopped. "Madam." Jimin was assigned to care for the alpha pups today. He must have carried the scent back with him. Before Jimin could say anything, he blurted all those words within one breath. Her cold eyes snapped to Taehyung. "Did I ask you to speak?" He flinched and cursed himself. No, madam, forgive me." And she turned back to Jimin, grabbed his chin with gloved fingers, forcing him to meet her stare. "Why are you sweating so much?" Before Jimin could say anything, he interrupted. It's very hot in here tonight." He stopped mid-sentence when he felt her glare over him. "I am sorry." He lowered his head. He found his lost voice, though it trembled, and took a deep breath. I was holding an injured pup for hours, madam. I didn't realize the scent would linger. My mistake. I sincerely apologize." She held him there for a heartbeat longer, so close he could feel her cold breath on his cheek. Her stare sent chills down his spine, making him lose his sanity. He could feel his heart almost coming out, but then a sigh of relief left his mouth when she released him with a shove. "Remember," she hissed, "when you break the rules, your roommates suffer too." He swallowed, his throat dry. "Yes, madam." She turned, cane tapping out her final verdict as she swept to the door. Without looking back, she raised her hand and said, "Dismissed." "Greet, madam!" His voice cracked, but he still found the strength to yell. "All good night, madam." They bowed in perfect unison. The door slammed shut. The silence afterward was deafening. Job nearly collapsed against the door, clutching the handle to keep from sliding to the floor. Taehyung and Subin threw themselves onto their beds, limbs boneless with relief. He whimpered. "We were so close to getting caught. You'll be the death of us, Chim." He groaned into his pillow. He looked at Jimin, eyes blazing with raw panic and exasperation. "Where were you?" "I told you, the alpha pups." He turned away, avoiding all their eyes. His voice was low, wrapped in quiet rage. Everyone else who was assigned that task was back by 6. "Where were you after that, Jimin?" "I'm tired, Hyung. Please, tomorrow." He dropped onto his bed and yanked the blanket over his head. His voice was muffled but clear. He threw his hands up. "Unbelievable. This boy will bury us all." He let out an exhausted sigh. "Enough." He crossed the room, gently tugged Subin's blanket up to his chin, then did the same for Taehyung. "What's done is done. We survived tonight. Just don't let it happen again." He paused by Jimin's bed, voice soft. "At least take off your uniform. You'll get sick."